I'm going to go 10-1. I got number 10, Travis Etienne Jr., number 9, Derrick Henry, number 8, Josh Jacobs, number 7, James Cook, number 6, Jahmyr Gibbs, number 5, Breece Hall, number 4, Jonathan Taylor, 3, Saquon Barkley, 2, Bijan Robinson, and number 1 is CMC and Dynamite. Those are my top 10. I have like a tier ranking break off in there where after Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't see any of those guys as being guys I would draft in the first round. But like those first 6 are all guys that I would consider drafting at some point, depending on where my first round pick would be. Who, Mike, you want to go with your top 10?
Yeah, I'll read mine off next. Pretty similar. I got Joe Mixon sliding in at 10. This was a super tough pick because I thought about Kyron Williams. I thought about James Cook. Thought about Josh Jacobs. Thought about a couple of guys here. And then I put Derrick Henry at 9. I think he's just going to have another consistent year. Yeah. It's going to be a good after the first round target this year again. Rachaad White at number 8 in PPR. Just want to keep that in mind that I'm looking at PPR here. With Gibbs and ETN at 7 and 6. Keeping in mind PPR here. Just throwing it out there. And then I have Breece Hall at number 5. When I was looking at Breece Hall's performance last year, I was actually kind of like, how did I not notice how good he was playing last year until now? And I obviously knew that he was doing good in fantasy football, but I didn't realize that it was, RB2 level production. That's crazy when he gets a quarterback there that knows how to shift the blocking schemes and call out defenses and run an offense functionally. Like, it might be better. It might win more than 7 games, and he might score more fantasy points. At 4, I have Jonathan Taylor, who I just still think is an absolute beast. It's just health is obviously the main concern there. Him and Anthony Richardson would be great together. Bijan Robinson at 3. I have Saquon Barkley at 2, and then Christian McCaffrey at 1 as well.
Joe?
Well, I think we all have CMC at number 1, so I'll just start there, right? But I'll throw a couple guys. I don't want to go through my whole list because I wasn't really prepared for it. I should have been. Okay. But I have a couple guys that I wrote down that that you guys didn't mention in your top 10, but I think they're sneaky top 10 fantasy football guys this year or running backs. Najee Harris coming back. You already know who his offensive coordinator is. You know what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball and throw to tight ends, right? Arthur Smith, he ain't going to – well, I hope he runs the ball, but I that's the Pittsburgh way is what they're going to do. And then I got Tony Pollard. I like Tony Pollard up there with the wide receivers and stuff like that. I think he'll be good in the passing game. And then the other guy is Kenneth Walker out of Seattle. I know Seattle running backs are hard to take, especially in fantasy football, just because of the injuries up there. But new head coach, maybe they get it going and stay healthy up there. But those are the 3 guys that I could see getting in the mix. And one of the other guys I think we always overlook in fantasy football, and it's funny because I just talked shit about his quarterback, is James Conner. But dude's a touchdown machine. Like, you're looking at fantasy points and just points alone, James Conner has been your guy.
Yeah, he is. He just produces, and he's even done it when we thought that there's no way the offensive line is bad and Clayton Tune's at quarterback, and it's like he still just goes out there and fights for all these yards. Mike, you wanted to jump in and say something?
No, nothing crazy. Okay. I like the way it's unfolding now. Like last year I was thinking, oh crap, like the running back fantasy market's going to be terrible next year. But I actually like this better because after maybe the top 4, I'm not really looking at anybody in the first round anymore in fantasy football as far as running back goes. I'm going to be leaning receiver, maybe even tight end, depending on where Kelsey's falling, all that jazz. I like seeing that, like, a lot of these guys that could be solid RB1s in your lineup are going to fall into round 2, 3, 4 now, instead of having to super reach on them and your whole season gets sunk in round 1, possibly because Christian McCaffrey's hammy goes, knock on wood. We don't want to see that happen. I can get 3 guys now, go receiver, 3 running backs, and like all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where it's at, where like some of the guys Joe was mentioning here, like the Najee Harris and Tony Pollard and stuff. If I'm getting those guys at the end of round 3 or in round 4, I feel a lot better about where they're at. Because Tony Pollard's in a situation where it's very interesting. I think the left side of that Titans line is going to be real nice, especially if they can get J.C. Latham to work out. And I have said some things about Alabama offensive linemen, but he also gets Callahan. He gets a great offensive line coach, and he's right there next to Skoronski. They get Questenberry. Like, I think that side of the offensive line can actually produce nicely for them. Najee Harris, my biggest issue is like there's not going to be enough in the passing game for me to be drafting him any higher than the 4th round, because Jaylen Warren is that guy, and Jaylen Warren's going to steal some of the work enough to keep him there. And James Conner, this is my dynasty target. Like, we're on a dynasty league together, but like I would consider drafting Trey Benson within the top 5 or 6 of my dynasty drafts. Like, I think he's coming into a situation where, like, yes, we underappreciate James Conner, but he's also hitting that point in his career where the wheels might start to come off a little bit more. Injuries might start to pop up. He was having some injury problems when he was in Pittsburgh. He's been relatively healthy, I believe, since he's been in Arizona. So, like, I just like Trey Benson. I like the opportunity for him to get some extra work there, especially change of pace in that scenario. So, like, I just want to say this: none of us had Alvin Kamara there, but do we think that much is going to change from Derek Carr, like just dumping the ball down to him a lot? I had him at number 13. If Kyron Williams' foot injury isn't necessarily bad, he'll probably jump up for me and push Travis Etienne and Derrick Henry down. And then I had Joe Mixon just a little bit lower because I still believe that Dameon Pierce is going to eat into those carries. Like, I know that he had a bad season last year. I just think he's too good of a football player to not be healthy coming into the season, hopefully this year, and not steal a little bit of shine from Joe Mixon.
Where did you guys have James Cook at?
I had James Cook high. I had him at 7. Like, I just think he's going to have a great year.
Yeah, I think he should be up there. Here's the thing, like Mike hit it right on the head. Like, I think when you're looking at fantasy drafts and you're like, what kind of values can I get? Like, I think the running back position, like, we're always like, we try to do that hero running back or whatever, or the zero running back. And then you get to there and you're like, holy crap, these are my guys going in. But now you're a little happier. And look, we didn't even mention some of the guys that are falling. Like, is Nick Chubb going to bounce back? Where is he going to be after his leg injury? Everybody forgot about Javonte Williams in Denver. Like, those are some guys that are going to fall late, and we're going to be able to get them. And not only that, some of these rookies coming out this year, like Jonathan Brooks or Blake Corum, or one of my favorite is Lloyd in Green Bay. Like, those are the guys that I think late in the season could win you some of these fantasy football things. So I think just looking at it's hard to make a top 10. I know the consensus of number 1 is good. But what about this name? I'll throw you this name, Tony. Chase Brown.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting spot where it's like you're going to take some of those shots on guys. We've done it. We do it every year. And when they hit, your team has like a bonus, like it's like, holy shit. Like the people who drafted Puka Nacua just because of a training camp report or whatever at the end ended up probably in the fantasy playoffs for their team.
Just don't talk about Ramondre. Everyone, we're just not going to talk about him this year. We're just going to leave him there in New England. It never works out there. No one talk about Ramondre Stevenson until he gets traded.
I'm worried about Ramondre Stevenson. I wouldn't draft him because Brian Robinson Jr. is up there. And I think he's going to take a lot of the load away from him.
No, that's Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr. are there. Even that, like, we didn't talk about those guys.
Who did New England sign?
Nobody.
No, they did. They brought in some veteran. I'm escaping my brain. I thought.
I got him confused. I must have got him confused. Oh, Antonio Gibson, the other one. Antonio Gibson. So I got my Washington running backs confused.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, I do think that part of the thing that we've suffered from in the past was like the running back by committee. I think those type of things are going to help us out to get some good value. Like, we haven't discussed David Montgomery. who had a really good fantasy season last year, but you're going to be able to probably draft him somewhere around eighth round, like be able to have him as an RB3, like maybe even 4, depending on how heavy you draft running backs in that situation. And there's a lot of players as you go down the list that are in that situation. We haven't talked about any of the running backs in Chicago. Like where are you going to reach? Where are you going to draft Swift, Khalil Herbert? Like I think that this is a great season to be like, if you can hit running back and go between rounds 4 to 9, and you can get 2 guys out of there, like your team is going to be loaded, especially if you drafted a top guy in the first round.
Yeah, I'm about 2 practices away of watching J.K. Dobbins run straight from drafting him just over you, Tony, in every single draft we're in.
Good luck, brother. That's the so that would
give me. I need 2 practices. I need to see 2 healthy practices and give me J.K. Dobbins as my RB2 target.
That's I do think I think guys like Gus Edwards have more value this year, because if you don't have Lamar Jackson stealing a bunch of end zone targets, Gus Edwards ends up with 8 to 10, maybe more touchdowns this season, because there's not a vulture down there inside the 5-yard line, like the Gus bus. Let's go.
We somehow get on the 1-yard line every fucking drive. I don't know how it's possible, but it's just our thing.
Bill Flames, I went Mike on the mic. With something brand new, one time for your mind. He gave you fair warning. Now it's time to smack him in the mouth with that raw sports talk from the town. Sweet chin music to your favorite sportscaster.